Scotland and England have a checkered history, with the adjoined countries spending many hundreds of years warring. In 1707, the two countries unified under James VI, the Stuart Kin, becoming known with the already unified Wales as Great Britain. In 1922, Great Britain and Northern Ireland joined to become the United Kingdom, although it hasn't exactly been marital bliss since then, with the question of a kingdom breakup never being too far from people's lips. Hello and welcome back to Life's Biggest Questions, the channel that loves to talk science, science fiction, politics, pop culture, history and what ifs. I'm your host Rebecca Felgate, and today I'm asking, what if Scotland left the UK? Before we get into the video, I want to ask you guys to let me know where you are from. Are you from the UK perhaps? Also, while you're down there, why don't you leave a thumbs up on this video and share it with a friend. Also guys, please do check out our social media links in the description box, and do stick around to the end of the video where I'll be reading some comments from one of my most recent big answers. So, Scotland. There's a lot of understandable discontent in Scotland. The whole country is bound to the pound, but has just only 56 seats in British Parliament out of a total of 650. Decisions are made in Westminster that affect Scotland, but a lot of Scottish people feel like they have no control over the outcome because of their small political representation. This discontent led to the Scottish independence referendum of 2014. Scots were given a yes or no vote with regards to leaving the UK. Now, the vote achieved a turnout of 84% of the populace, of which 55% voted no to independence. However, since then, things have changed. The UK as a collective had their own referendum in 2016 as to whether to leave the European Union. The voting turnout was 71.8%, and leave won by 51.9% to 48.1% remain. The only thing is that the majority of leavers were in England and Wales, with 62% of Scotland wishing to remain in the EU. This has sparked the whole independence debate once again. So, what if Scotland did leave the UK? Well, the population of what is left of the UK would drop to around 59 million. It would drop from being the 21st most populous country in the world to the 24th. The population of the newly independent Scotland, however, would be just 5.45 million, making it one of the smallest countries, the 127th most populous in the world, trailing behind Palestine, Ireland, New Zealand and the Central African Republic. The UK would lose around 8% of its population, but it would lose 32% of its land, which would mean a few key things. Reduced to 164,523 square kilometres, the UK would become a very small country with actually a pretty large population. Things would start to feel hella cramped. There would be far less space for industrial factory-based businesses to grow. Perhaps factories and warehouses would begin to develop further in Northern Ireland and Wales, who may in turn benefit from increased economic growth. So speaking of the economy, Brexit has already battered the UK. Growth rates have changed, the pound has dropped to its lowest since the recession, and real wages have dramatically fallen. And that's all before we have even reached a Brexit deal. Without Scotland, the UK's economic standing in the future would likely be weaker still. But how much weaker? In 2014, it was calculated that Scotland adds around £106.3 billion of the goods and services in gross value added. Now, this is roughly 10% of the UK's total GVA. The UK would also lose around 7% of its export value. Defence in the UK would be damaged too. Trident, our nuclear defence system, is based in Scotland. We would likely just move it, but Scotland co-invested, and it would be a messy conscious uncoupling at the same time the UK is also divorcing the EU. History teaches us that fighting a battle on two fronts is notoriously tricky. Could we cope? Politically, without Scottish votes, it is likely that the UK would become far more conservative, which may lead to further privatisation. I'd be most interested to see what happened to the NHS, the National Health Service, and how those with smaller incomes fared. Without Scotland, the UK may seem even more unattractive to young talent. The millennial workforce loves travel opportunities, and with less land and no more free movement from the UK to other EU nations, would the UK be driving out young people? Personally speaking, and I am trying to leave myself out of this, but I'm pretty glad that I moved to Canada before this whole mess began. Realistically though, the UK would continue to be a big economy on the world stage. The history of the United Kingdom is probably enough to help it prevail. prevail. It would continue to be a nuclear-armed nation with membership to the UN and NATO. Side note though, it would need a new name as the kingdom would very much no longer be united. Any suggestions for the new name? So that is the remainder of the UK dealt with for now, but what about the newly independent Scotland? How will they fare riding solo? Scotland would now be able to govern themselves from Holyrood in Edinburgh without having decisions made some 400 miles away in London. There are of course a lot of questions about what direction the country would take after 300 years of being bound to their southerly neighbours. For starts, it would be at the moment represented by a strong female First Minister in the form of Nicola Sturgeon. Scotland has plenty of space to expand and grow, and things may initially look up for the Scottish people as gross domestic product increases to around £120 per head. Scotland's main exports are whiskey, gas, and the big O: oil. This would be contentious for the UK, but Scotland has the North Sea oil rigs, although supplies are dwindling. If they wanted to grow as a country and boost their current export value of around 18.2 billion, they would need to up their industry game. Perhaps this would be a great and attractive opportunity for foreign investors. Scotland would likely continue using the pound, but if it did, it would not have an input on monetary policy like interest rates, which could be a problem if the country ever fell into recession. This may mean the country eventually looks to create its own currency, or perhaps it would join the euro. If Scotland could upturn its economy and remain in the EU, it could become a very attractive place for business people and young talent to live. One contentious issue would be the border and relations with the rest of the UK. Would it be a hard border or a soft border? Another huge question, but what of the British monarchy? What would the Queen do? She certainly would not like a breakup. Many people say the monarchy would fall if Scotland and the UK were torn away from one another, and to be honest, I can kind of see where they're coming from. With less landmass and less subjects, what use really is the crown? Wider-reaching questions which turn this question into a series of other questions include: what would happen with Northern Ireland? Would a separation of Scotland increase the chances of a unified Ireland? Would Catalonia leave Spain? Would Quebec leave Canada? The butterfly effect could become so huge that we should really leave this question here for now. But let's do continue in the comments section down below. So guys, once again, where are you from and what do you think would happen if the UK and Scotland parted ways? What would we call the UK then? Do let me know all of these thoughts in the comments section down below, and while you're there, please do leave a thumbs up and share this video with a friend. Before I go, I'm just going to read some comments from one of my most recent videos: what if an asteroid hit Earth at the speed of light? Andrew Morgan said, well, if the asteroid was coming at the speed of light, we wouldn't see it until it hit us because information cannot travel faster than light. A very good point. Uncle Sam said, what if the Galactic Empire invaded Earth? How would we fight? I don't think I've got enough energy left after this video to even broach an answer, but I'll think about it. SexyMan69 said, what if Shaggy reaches 100% of his power? Questions, questions everywhere, and not a drop to drink. So guys, thank you for watching once again. Please do show me the love with a thumbs up. For now, I'm your host Rebecca Felgate. I'll catch you in the next video, but until then, stay curious, stay alert, and never ever stop questioning.